If you've ever booted up a verified game on your Steam Deck and thought, there's no way this should be verified, well, Valve is starting to hear you. They just pushed out some changes to how Steam Deck verification works, or more specifically, how developers get to see what's actually going on with their games on Steam Deck. And honestly, it is a good step, but it also kind of puts the verification system's problems front and center again, so let's get into it. Now, this isn't something that came out of nowhere. A few months back, they added the option to send anonymous framerate data through Steam. Then they added PC specs attached to user reviews. Then in early April, somebody digging through Steam's code found references that suggested Valve might be looking at putting some of this data directly on the game's store page. It's nothing official, Valve hasn't said a word about it, but it is in the code, so presumably we'll get to see it someday. But then they dropped this. Valve just announced this through a Steamworks blog post, so this is aimed at developers, not players, that Steam Deck specific performance data is now being fed back to the people who actually made the games. Now, two things specifically. First is average framerate data. Developers get a chart showing a rolling 30-day daily average of how their game runs on Steam Deck, pulled from users who opted in. And Valve says they're planning to add variance data on top of that, so not just an average, but whether the frame rate is actually holding steady, maybe they will even show 1% loss. Now that second part with variance data is one I care about more, because an average can hide a lot. A game that sits at 30 FPS most of the time, but thanks to 15 in certain areas, that average looks fine on paper. But in reality, it's really not, and variance data makes the real picture visible. And I think that's actually really useful. The second thing is user survey results. You might have seen this already, but when you exit a game on the Steam Deck, Steam sometimes asks if you agree with how the game's been rated on their verification system. And if you say no, you can pick from a list of reasons, either input, legibility, performance, stability, or other. Developers can now see all of that in aggregate over a rolling 30-day window, so they can actually track whether updates are moving things in the right direction or making things worse. Right now, this is only live for verified games, but Valve says it will also be available for games that are marked as playable sometimes later. Now, real quick before we move on, if you want to know which games actually hold up on Steam Deck, I've got a curator page with tested settings and performance notes for all the games I review. Link is in the description. Now, the verification system has had issues for a while, and I think this forces us back into that conversation. To be fair to Valve, Verified was never meant to be a performance rating. The actual criteria is closer to does it launch, can you read the text, can you navigate it with a controller, and are you able to get it into a playable state? With that playable state being really something that moves around. That's it. It's not the game runs great on Steam Deck. It never was. But that's not how we read it, and honestly, I can't blame us. The badge says verified, it has a green check mark, it's sitting right there on the store page. Most people are going to assume that means it runs well. Now, Borderlands 4 is my go-to example. That game should not have that badge. The performance on Steam Deck just doesn't back it up. Now, thanks to Steam Deck HQ for allowing me to use their footage and then showing you how it actually looks, because I refused to purchase this game. It has received numerous updates since it came out, and it still doesn't deserve that verified badge. Dune Awakening is another example. I'd give it more of a pass. It can hold 30 FPS. There are some demanding sections, but I guess it is more defensible. And these demanding sections is where that variance FPS data will come in handy. So that's roughly the line I would draw. If a game can get there with some effort, that's fine. If it just can't get there consistently, you shouldn't have the verified badge. And more people are saying the same thing. The disagreement rate on verified ratings is apparently under 5% according to Valve. But even at that number, across the full library of deck-rated games, that's a lot of titles where players think the label is wrong. And I think this update exists partly because of that pressure and because more and more people are starting to talk about it. What I would actually want to see is Valve tightening up that 30 FPS floor. Not 30 FPS on average, but consistent 30 FPS with acceptable dips. I think that feels like a reasonable bar, and right now it isn't really being enforced. And yes, some of us were born in the previous century and remember playing games at 15 and 20 FPS, and I'm sure somebody in the comment section will say how they can enjoy a game even at lower frame rates, but the reality is, even if you enjoy it, it's just not the complete experience. There used to be so much drama over how games releasing on the previous generations of PlayStation and Xbox still run at 30 FPS, and people used to laugh at that. Now suddenly, the same people are fine with under 30 FPS? I just don't see it. Now this is where it gets interesting, circling back to that April rumor about performance data eventually showing up on store pages. I think about that sequence, anonymous data collection, specs on reviews, now a developer dashboard with real frame rate and survey data. This isn't random at all. It feels like steps towards something real. Whether FPS being displayed on the store page is the destination or not, Valve is clearly building infrastructure around this and around showing how games actually run, not just on the Steam Deck, but in general. And I think it's also going to matter a lot more once the Steam Machine and the Steam Frame launch. Once SteamOS is running on more hardware, the verification system needs to actually be reliable. So getting developers better data now probably isn't accidental timing. And for developers, this is genuinely useful stuff that didn't exist before. For players, nothing changes directly today, but developers now have the numbers in front of them. No more guessing whether players are happy with how a verified game runs. It's right there in the dashboard. And if you have not opted in to share that FPS data, consider doing it. It's completely anonymized, and it doesn't impact your games or your Steam Deck experience at all. Alright, that's pretty much it. If you got a verified game that you think absolutely should not have that badge, drop it in the comments. I'm curious what's on your list. And if you enjoyed this video, click that like button. If you want to see more Steam, Steam Deck, Steam hardware, and handheld content, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.